Welcome back to StoryTube, everybody. We fooled you into thinking that we were back talking about popular SFF, but no, fear not. We are still talking about crime. Today we want to talk about a classic of the crime genre from the 1960s. It's Pop.1280 by Jim Thompson. As you might know if you watch our channel, I have a crime book club that is attended by Carlos, amongst others, in work, where the bookshop where I work. And this was our pick for July.
Yeah, and we've been wanting to read it for a while, specifically wanting to try Jim Thompson for a while. And if you perhaps follow this channel, I made a little video earlier in the year talking about the little crime spree that I wanted to go on to take off some of the ones that have been on my TBR for a really long time. And Pop 1280, here you go. We read it. And it's probably one of my top 5 books I've read this year.
I don't know where it would be for me because I haven't really thought about it, but definitely a great book I've read this year.
A goal of this channel, obviously, is to try get some more people into crime fiction and tearing down that bit of unconscious bias or a little bit of snobbery that we sometimes see from fantasy readers or SFF readers towards the crime thriller umbrella, that it's all the same, it's just a thriller, it's just some schlocky shit that you buy in an airport. That is untrue.
Especially of this book right here.
Especially for this book right here. And yeah, this book is the perfect example of a book that is more than just the label of its genre.
I actually think it could be found in fiction sections of bookshops. Like it doesn't have to be classified as crime. Our friend Joseph reviewed it recently. We'll link his video in the description. And he also called it a great American novel because it is also a book just about America.
That's an interesting label. I didn't see it. I thought maybe my idea of the great American novel was a bit more grand.
Yeah, it's more contained.
This one is a small scale story, but I do get what he's saying. So when we started reading this for the book club, I messaged Joseph because I know maybe that this would be the kind of thing that Joseph would like to read. And we had just read Dashiell Hammett. He had read Power of the Dog with us. I was like, Joe, we're reading Prop 1280. I think you might like it. And he loved it. So did we.
You started it, told Joseph about it, and then we both finished before you.
Yeah.
In my case, because I took our copy, obviously. But
yeah, she stole our copy. I read 30, 40 pages and was like, this is a banger.
And then I took it, read it in 2 sittings, and gave it back to you.
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much exactly how that went down. Like we were saying, it's more than just the label that is thrust upon it. I find it interesting when people say they don't like crime fiction or they don't like thrillers or whatever. Again, I've said this a few times on the channel. Those are 2 very different things to me. To a crime fiction book and a thriller, that's 2 different. That should be 2 different genres, but they're often lumped together, a bit like SFF.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand. Obviously, this channel is us trying to maybe, tackle a bit of the snobbery, or not necessarily snob, but unconscious bias that might exist towards some crime fiction. And like fantasy fans are well used to this from the literary fiction crowd, and the crime fiction fans are used to it from the fantasy crowd and the literary fiction crowd. So it's just curious because this book, it's quite similar in a way to some of the, I guess, books by Cormac McCarthy and stuff like that zone in on the psychology of a character that is questionable morally. Morally grey. Fantasy fans, morally grey. There you go.
We have a first person POV of an unreliable, morally grey character.
It's grimdark. Abercrombie vibes. Jokes aside, this book is just so much more than its genre elements. I think it kind of does transcend the genre.
I do think so, yeah.
Because it's on the literary end. it's got something to say. It's doing it in an artful way, with a little bit of maybe subtle metaphor, with a little bit of subtext that you gotta sink your teeth into, but you don't have to enjoy the book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real talent going on here. You can tell in the writing, the way he uses the first person unreliable narration. It's very, very clever. You can tell.
The fact itself of whether it's reliable or unreliable is unreliable.
Yes, and that's part of the fun. What is this book about? Pop.1280. I think that's an excellent title for this book. We'll get into why. We won't spoil too much about the book. This will be spoiler free.
I actually think it's a book that you benefit if you don't know a lot about the plot going in. I think knowing stuff about like the themes or the
read
general
the back.
writing style, don't read the back. I think it's better when you know as little as possible about the plot outside of the like basic setup of like the first 10 pages.
Yeah, so to set up the book for you guys, this is about a small town sheriff by the name of Nick Corey in a town called Potts County, with a population of 1,280 souls. And Nick Corey is a bit of a doofus, or is he?
Not very good at his job.
Not very good at his job.
Or is he?
Or is he? He tends to do nothing or not get involved with what people decide to do. Or does he? And it's kind of about his schemes unraveling. I would rather just leave it there and for you guys to read the book and experience it for yourselves, because this is actually a magnificent book.
It's also set in Texas around 1917, and it is deliciously atmospheric, a wonderful sense of place. That comes
Great
out.
Dialogue.
It comes out in the narration. It comes out in the dialogue. It comes out in the characters and the setting itself. It's a great sense of place.
So basically it's told in first person, and Nick Corey is a bit of an idiot, and he speaks that way. So he writes the book in that way, and because it's in first person, the main character is presenting you with a facade of how he wants you, the reader, and everyone in the book to see him. It's a wonderful little unraveling of that, and unraveling of the plot, and all of the schemes that go on in the book, and all this house of cards that gets built in the book, and it's all gonna crash, or is it? It's a great little story. It's pretty unconventional in its setup for a crime fiction book, and in terms of there's not a huge amount of tropes going into it. So it's
there's also no
quite
investigation.
Unique. It's not an investigation. It's just small town sheriff doing things, and I again don't want to say too much. I just think the way it's written, the style, the use of unreliable narrator. Is it unreliable, or is he telling you exactly what he wants you to know? Joseph said he made a review video for it. We'll link it down in the description as well. He also said that while the main character is gaslighting everybody in the book, he's also gaslighting you as the reader constantly.
It's a book with incredible reread value, because I think the second read experience would be completely different to the first one, because you're looking for different things.
Yeah.
And when we were discussing it in the book club, and you kind of alluded to this at the beginning, you can discuss this on a very superficial level in terms of what we've just talked about right now, of like, oh, did you see this coming, or like this twist here, or like how is it's told, and like whatever. Or you can start pulling on the thread of metaphorically what it might be representing and what certain word choices might mean, and is it commenting on narcissism? Is it going politics. A little bit further? Is it commenting on politics? Is it taking this small town to make a comparison and comment on larger scale politics? Is it going even further than that, and is it commenting on like ideas of religion and divine intervention and like things like that without going into any detail of why that might be. But it even made me think of those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he does that in 187 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So impressive.
Yeah. There's a sort of there's a mythological quality to it.
Yeah.
You can look at it as a sort of is it a biblical story? Is it like a parable? Is it a condemnation of politics in the world? Is it a condemnation of the failings of people and how people behave selfishly?
If I put temptation in front of you and you take it, is it your fault or is it mine?
Yeah. And
really interesting moral questions.
Yeah. And is the what does the character represent in that sense? Yeah, there's a lot about temptation in the book. Temptation, greed, and what do we sacrifice about aspects of our humanity to indulge in things. And there's a little bit of examination of that. But if you don't want or don't even see that kind of stuff going on, it's still just a really fun story. Like, it's a wild story.
Yeah.
So I really do think that this is easily one of the best books I've read this year. I don't see it not being in the top 10 at the end of the year when we get there. Mm-hmm. Definitely one of the best works of crime fiction that I've read in recent memory. And I've read some good stuff. I've read some, like, solid stuff. But this one just has another layer, another level or two to it. Again, like some of the best books, it's not overly pretentious, and this actually happens with literary fiction sometimes, where the focus is so much on the art and the sort of heavy theme or whatever, that is overbearing on the story.
Or because it might want to trick you into perceiving it as more
important
and having more depth than it actually has by dialing up those elements of like being experimental in structure or having flowery prose or like beating you over the head with a theme.
And it neglects to tell you a good story or just hide that a little bit, which I think is a bigger skill.
Yeah. For sure.
And it's why, I think literary fiction, the same as any other genre, has a ton of crap and a ton of good stuff. It's just you gotta dig a little bit, you gotta find the good stuff. And it's why on this channel we generally don't think one genre is better than another genre. There's just good books everywhere.
It also depends on what you want. Like, do you want character-driven stories? Do you want adventures? Do you want theme? Like, those things exist in every genre.
Yeah.
And I think this book and the geniuses of this book, I mean, it doesn't mean that it's a book for everyone, obviously, but I think the genius of it is that in such a short word count, you get a little bit for everyone. Like, sure, if you want like a fun adventure story where you root for people, that's probably not what you're going to get here. But if you're looking for interesting characters, they're there. If you're looking for a narrative voice, it's there. If you're looking for metaphor and theme and something to make you reflect, it's there. But if you just want a fun story
it's also
and not
there.
Think about that, that's also there.
Yeah.
So very, very impressed with that book, to be honest.
And it's also not super grand scale crime fiction where, there's a ton of things going on. There's a drug war going on over there, and there's a ring of traffickers and whatever going on over there. There's none of that big shit going on. It's just a small town.
It's really small scale, very focused.
With people being horrible to each other. And like backstabbing and all that kind of stuff, and schemes and manipulation and all that kind of stuff. With a sort of a bumbling buffoon at the center of it all. Or is he? So if any of you guys are interested in reading this book, we would be delighted to hear from you.
Delighted.
Please comment down below if you're interested in reading the book after listening to us shite on about it. If you have read this book, or if you've read any other Jim Thompson, go down into the comments and let us know about that as well. I think the next one I'll be reading is The Killer Inside Me.
Yeah.
He's also written The Grifters, and he wrote The Getaway, which was later a cool Steve McQueen movie from the 60s. Early 70s? Don't remember. Anyway, Pop.1280 by Jim Thompson. Just a marvelous book. Wonderful book. And shout out to Joe for reading it with us.
Yep. That's it. Thank you so much for watching.
Like,
we'll see you next time.
Like, subscribe, all that
stuff. Yes, of course.
See you later.
Bye.